CrossTrek represents Subaru's concession to electrification to suit the needs of the current market. Like its predecessor, the XV, this self-charging full hybrid mid-sized crossover takes on segment models like Toyota's CHR, Kia's Niro and Hyundai's Kona hybrid, cars that also have this technology. For a little more money, this Subaru offers more space, much more capability, but a little less efficiency. Want a more seriously capable kind of compact lower mid-sized family SUV? Here, Subaru provides it in the form of this car, the CrossTrek. If you think you've seen this car somewhere before, you have. This CrossTrek model is a lightly facelifted version of the third generation XV that was launched by Subaru back in 2022. The predecessor MK2 XV design was rebadged CrossTrek in the US and Canada back in 2015, and in early 2024 Subaru decided to rename the European versions of this MK3 XV design CrossTrek 2. At the same time, there was a light visual makeover, but the Fuji Heavy Industries brand's rather unique engineering for this car, a gruff e-boxer engine and symmetrical all-wheel drive, was carried over unchanged. The CrossTrek's e-boxer unit can't be plugged in, but it is a proper self-charging hybrid, in contrast to the mild hybrid engines being currently marketed by Ford and Volkswagen Group brands, which feature power plants that can't, at any time, run independently on battery power. So, Subaru has done the job properly and married that electrified tech to a car that can do a good deal more off tarmac than your usual family SUV would be able to manage. But, of course, all that means extra weight and efficiency cost. Are the payoffs here worthwhile? Well, you'll need the usual comprehensive car and driving review to find out. No engineering change is featured in this model's transition from XV to CrossTrek branding, so as before, the sole engine offered here is the brand's familiar, normally aspirated 136 PS 2-litre boxer petrol unit, sending power to all four wheels via a CVT belt-driven auto transmission. Subaru's e-boxer tech sees this power plant assisted by a 16 brake horsepower electric motor built into that Lineartronic gearbox, the motor powered by a small battery under the boot floor. That's enough for all-electric driving at speeds of up to 25 miles an hour. The electric assistance doesn't have much impact on the fairly leisurely levels of performance. Rest to 62 miles an hour takes 10.8 seconds on the way to a top speed of 123 miles an hour. More significantly, peak pulling power, just 182 Newton meters, isn't delivered until 4,000 RPM, so the already rather gruff-sounding flat-4 engine needs to be stretched quite a lot outside its comfort zone if you want to make really significant progress. If you're to achieve that, then you'll have to engage the more urgent of the two provided SI Drive Subaru Intelligent Drive modes. S for Sport. The other option is I for Intelligent Drive. As you'd expect, these settings vary throttle response and gear shift timings. But even in sport, progress never feels particularly urgent, not helped by the rubber band characteristics of the lethargic CVT auto gearbox. It doesn't feel very sporty round the bends either, so there's little incentive to test the limits of the rather vague steering rack. Despite that, the damping's fairly firm, so you'll certainly feel poorer tarmac tears and speed humps. Still, all will be forgiven when you get this car off-road. There's a very decent 221mm of ground clearance, an unusually high stance by class standards, and as usual with Subaru, a symmetrical all-wheel drive system's included that'll get you to places other volume brand four-wheel drive mid-sized crossovers would struggle to reach. Subaru provides two additional separated X-mode drive settings for this kind of terrain. On this center screen you can select either snow dirt or deep snow mud. When these are engaged, the e-boxer's electric motor is used to help improve off-road ability, providing extra low-down pulling power. This means the car can take on steep slopes and descents, shuffling power between various wheels. And Subaru says the CrossTrek can lean over at up to 30 degrees, an unheard of stat for a car of this kind. It all means that if you were to live right out in the wilds of, say, North Wales or the Scottish Highlands and needed a reasonably priced smaller SUV for the school run or work commute that would offer real peace of mind for the colder months, then for us, acquisition of a CrossTrek would be a no-brainer. Whether this car makes sense in suburbia, though, is a very different question. You could certainly live with it in an urban environment, and thanks to that e-Boxer engine, the efficiency downsides that would normally come with the symmetrical all-wheel drive system aren't quite as pronounced as they used to be in smaller Subarus. The CrossTrek is basically a lightly facelifted version of Subaru's previous XV model and shares the same SUV visual cues and broad-shouldered stance. As before in profile, you can see at a glance that this is a more seriously capable kind of smaller SUV. The raised roof rails and the unusually angled wheel arch cladding panel certainly make that point, as does the significantly raised stance with its 221mm of ground clearance, considerably more than is offered by most segment rivals. It all encourages you to take the usual crossover cues a little more seriously. e-Boxer badging decorates the front wings, and if you choose this top touring spec, the wheel size goes up from 17 to 18 inches and the mirror covers change from dark grey to black. For differences over the previous XV badged model, you've to look here at the front, where there's a frameless hexagonal grille and more compact LED steering responsive headlamps, along with daytime running lights and front fog lamps, both also lit with LEDs. The tail lamps have also been restyled in the change from XV to CrossTrek. There's a serious looking vibe back here too, with prominent black corner cutouts, a ribbed lower diffuser and a subtle roof spoiler. Under the skin, as with the third generation XV at launch in 2022, lies the billion-dollar Subaru global platform launched by the brand with the Impreza back in 2018. And inside, well, it's not very avant-garde by current class standards. Wipe clean, hard plastic surfaces, no digital instrument screen and no customizable widgets for the central infotainment monitor, for instance. But that kind of stuff really wouldn't suit the tough practical feel that Subaru wants this car to have. And in its way, the cabin feel is quite smart, with carbon fibre look centre dash trimming that extends into the doors and smart graphics for the 11.6-inch Starlink central display that represents the main cabin change as part of this car's transition from XV to CrossTrek badging. That screen isn't quite as large as it first appears. It's surrounded by a broad, shiny dark frame that incorporates various physical buttons. But it's a decent improvement on the 8-inch setup that featured before, and everything you really need is here, with main map, radio, media, phone, apps, settings and car info sections, though you can't tailor the layout of those to preference as you might expect to be able to do on a screen of this kind these days. As you'd expect, there's built-in Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring. There are some nice touches on this monitor though. You can record birthdays and anniversaries on it, and there's a very detailed car info section that gives you a drivetrain power split graphic plus tilt angle and gradient graphics. You get a very detailed maintenance section too, and this screen can brief you on weather and traffic reports, plus the setup can also provide wireless audio, news updates and a calendar. In addition, its functionality extends to a range of apps that can be downloaded onto users' phones or tablets. Anything else you might need to know will probably be found on the small screen that lies between the two analog instrument cluster dials that you view through this rather over-buttoned steering wheel. Above a drive assist graphic with a speed limit readout, this little display can show temperature, a hybrid system indicator, trip computer data, a four-wheel drive graphic, a compass and an MPG meter. Now the seats are also worthy of comment. They've been made more supportive for this CrossTrek. They come with standard heating and position you quite commandingly with decent all-round vision. There's a reasonable amount of cabin storage. You get this open stowage area in front of the gear stick with USB-A, USB-C and an aux-in port just above. Just below the gear stick there are 2 cup holders and a 12-volt socket with a small cubby just behind, and there's a deep lidded box between the seats. The glove box and the door pockets aren't that big, and there's a flap in the driver's sun visor for tickets and things. Accessibility to the back is helped by doors that open wider than those fitted to many competitor models. Once inside, Subaru talks of room for 3 adults, but the high centre transmission tunnel will make that difficult to achieve on all but the shortest journeys. It'll be fine for 3 children though. If there are only 2 of you, then you'll be able to use the dual cup holders in this fold-down armrest. You don't get a sliding seat base or a reclining backrest. The CrossTrek's comparatively long wheelbase gives a decent amount of rear legroom, the space available helped by front seats that you can get your feet comfortably under. USB-A and USB-C ports are provided, plus there's coat hooks in the grab handles, and you get a seat back pocket, though only on one side, which seems a bit mean. Right, let's finish with a look at boot space. Now you might well think that the sum required for ownership here would entitle you to a powered tailgate, particularly on this top touring spec model. Apparently not. Given the subtleness of the upgrade from XV to CrossTrek, you wouldn't have thought there would be any changes to the amount of trunk space available, already somewhat restricted by Qashqai class standards in the previous model. Think again. Somehow, Subaru has managed to reduce the amount of carriage capacity by 30 litres, taking the total down to just 315 litres. Now, to give you some segment perspective, that's 185 litres less than a Qashqai and even 141 litres less than a Ford Puma in the Super Mini-based SUV class below. On the plus side, it's a conveniently square space, and there's a shallow loading lip which makes it easy to throw stuff in. And you get no fewer than 6 tie-downs, though only 2 of them are of the normal type. There's no proper space beneath the cargo floor, just this narrow compartment, which isn't enough to take the parcel shelf, and certainly isn't big enough for any kind of spare wheel. Now that's something that we disapprove of in an SUV with off-road pretensions like this one. There's just this can of tyre sealant. There's no ski hatch or convenient 40-20-40 seat back split either. Fold the 60-40 seat back down and a very modest 992 litres of space is revealed. Prices for this CrossTrek start at around £34,000. That's for the base limited version. Now, if you want the plusher touring variant that we have here, you'll need £2,000 more. Segment comparisons are difficult to make. Yes, there are any number of other similarly sized models in the Qashqai class lower mid-sized SUV segment, but hardly any of them have four-wheel drive, and the pricey ones that do don't have the ground clearance or an appropriate all-wheel drive system for the kind of gnarly tracks this CrossTrek could attempt. So this Subaru is reasonably unique, and it comes with plenty of kit. Standard equipment includes keyless entry, full LED steering responsive headlights. You get privacy glass on the rear windows, there are roof rails, automatic air conditioning and adaptive cruise control. Base limited models are equipped with 17-inch diamond-turned alloy wheels, while this touring version comes with 18-inch diamond-turned wheels in an alternative design. Now, on both derivatives, there's also a reversing camera and an 11.6-inch centre dash touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring. And you get Subaru's X-Mode off-road drive settings complete with hill descent control. Other touring-specific features include high beam assist, a powered sunroof and gloss black mirror caps. Across the range, there are plenty of camera safety features too. We think that EyeSight, Subaru's camera-based safety package, is arguably the best on the market. It works with facial recognition and a system of lights that reflect up onto the inside of the windscreen ahead of you. Incorporated features include pre-collision braking control, forward collision warning, emergency lane keeping assist and lane departure warning. In addition, there's a rear vehicle detection system offering blind spot detection and reversing assistance. And you also get a driver monitoring system to alert you in case of drowsiness, and a rear seat reminder that prompts you to look in the back every time you power off. In everyday use of this e-Boxer engine, it only feels as if you're saving fuel. The car always takes off on electric power with an otherworldly EV simulated exterior hum, and the instrument cluster's little green EV light usually stays on for up to around 18 miles an hour, though is sometimes less keen to activate when you drop back down again to that speed. The CrossTrek certainly seems to stick with all electric power more readily than some rival self-charging hybrid models we've tried. You just have to be a bit careful with your right foot. The engine will chime in to start charging the battery after about a mile and automatically assists the battery and charges it up above 25 miles an hour before taking over all duties once you reach cruising speeds. The setup also recharges the battery when the car is braking or when you're coasting. A hybrid system indicator on the instrument cluster shows the system working in real time. Unfortunately, the official WLTP rated efficiency stats don't seem to reflect the complexity of the petrol-electric technology developed here. These are quoted at 35.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 180 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's not much better than the pre-2022 era unelectrified version of the Boxer engine could manage, and it's certainly some way off the prevailing class standard. A 156 PS Nissan Qashqai four-wheel drive model, for instance, manages 40.4 miles to the gallon and 157 grams per kilometre of CO2. But of course, an all-wheel drive Qashqai couldn't go to the places you could reach in a CrossTrek. At least the decently sized 48-litre fuel tank gives all models a useful touring range. And there's an MPG meter in the instrument dash display that helps you optimise your driving efficiency over time. Residual values certainly aren't going to give BMW or Audi any sleepless nights, but Subaru is committed to doing what it can to make the ownership experience as painless as possible. You get a 3-year, 125,000 mile warranty, and the car's traction battery has its own 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty. In CrossTrek form, this Subaru doesn't really offer anything more than you got from the 3rd generation XV model it's based upon, unless you particularly value the slightly sharper looks and the usefully improved level of cabin infotainment. Now, we'd hoped that the Japanese brand might have improved the efficiency of its e-Boxer engine as part of this update, but that's still some way off the prevailing class standard. But that prevailing class standard is set by cars in this class that are much less capable on a gnarly track than a CrossTrek. If you value that capability, then a slight efficiency downside isn't going to put you off one of these, nor should it. As with the XV, the brand's symmetrical all-wheel drive setup is this car's biggest draw. Most alternatives in this class don't offer four-wheel drive at all, except sometimes on ridiculously pricey variants, and even then they simply won't get you the places this Subaru can go. If you live out in the country or you regularly tow, that's going to be a huge attraction if you're shopping for this class of car. Perhaps the next generation of CrossTrek will be able to offer this capability with fewer everyday compromises. For now though, if you're prepared to make them, there's still a lot here to like.